Students of Reddit, have you ever lost your temper with a teacher? What's your story? Not me, but a girl flipped shit on my economics professor cause she kept canceling class without sending out emails. The girl only had that class on Fridays and drove an hour to get there. It sucks she got caught in traffic, just to get a note next to the classroom saying cancelled. My college did the same thing to part-time students. We make special arrangements to leave work earlier on days that we have classes so that we can get through the rush hour traffic in time, and then when we get there we find out the class has been cancelled. At this age in technology they should be using an e-notice board or forum system to send out mass announcements, or at the very least email. You'd be surprised how many professors are still computer illiterate. Or not surprised if you work for the university's department. I have a professor who signs in maybe once a semester and it's only to input final grades, and he forgets his password every single time. We're on a first name basis and I've only met him in person once or twice. You can bet when he calls it something ridiculous like forgot to plug in and turn in the printer. Some faculty are just old, and even some younger ones are old souls who aren't very computer literate. Also, it annoys me to no end when the teacher didn't set things up properly in Canvas, and when it doesn't work for students their first line of defense is, call it. Right, so because you forgot to publish some random file on some random assignment it's our fault. Then I have to go digging for the file and manually change the permissions because the teacher was too lazy, or too computer illiterate, to do it themselves. Whoa, you can tell I deal with this stuff a little too much. End rant edit, was not expecting this response. Sorry I don't have time to respond to everyone, but good to know I'm not alone. This is my most upvoted and most commented on comment. A friend of mine wanted to go to a certain university that was out of state and somewhat tough to get into. The counselor told him not to waste his time as he would never get in. This pissed him off, so he went to the principal, who told him to trust the counselor as that was her job. He applied anyways, got accepted, and taped 2 copies to the counselor and principal's door. He couldn't afford to go anyways, but he was trying to prove a point. A true hero. Oof, that brought back a bad memory. My mother and father passed when I was in my final year of school. I was off school for a while around the time of the second funeral. When I returned to school, my tutor decided it was her job to tell the class what had happened with me, right there in front of everyone instead of letting me do it on my own terms. To say I lost my temper would be an understatement. Wow. It's more common than you think. When my dad died, I was 18, senior year of high school. I was working our school's spring play and had a pretty important role as both an actor and the main writer-adapter of the play itself. I only missed a day of school because of that, and AP class definitely a decision I regret. My theater director and I were pretty close, so he decided that the best way to welcome me back to rehearsal was to announce, in front of the entire cast and crew, that my dad had died over the weekend and that he wanted them to sign a card for me. It was awkward as hell. Then, at the end of the year, we had an awards ceremony to honor seniors in each subject, sport, etc. I won the Senior Drama Award, and when the director presented it, he retold the story of my father's death and my return to school. To about 150 other students and their families and friends. When I was up on stage accepting the award, I wanted nothing more than to shrivel up and die. I felt woozy just reading this. That's ducked up. Did you flip out? Seems like he was one of those people that got off on tragedy. It sounds like he had good intentions but just executed them in the worst way possible. I flipped my shit on a logic professor who lost my assignments records. You didn't do them. I'm looking at your grades and they are zeros, that's why you have a D. Me, look you dipshit, I have papers you've graded right here. They aren't even good, but they are not zeros. It was over the phone, but eventually I read through his comments on my papers while he was trying to argue with me. That's when he's like, okay. That doesn't sound made up. Scan your papers and email them in. Went from a D to a B. Edit, thanks for the gold. Holy shit, you actually called him a dipshit? I said worse tbh. I already had a D, so I was going to have to retake it anyway. My dog died like a day before and another professor said I couldn't take a final because I was a minute late. I thought I was going to have to drop out. I flipped on several teachers, but this one still bugs me. One of my best friends in high school had died in a car accident, and a couple days later my friends and I told my teacher we would not be able to make it to class because of the viewing. She then proceeded to tell us that we need to plan our days better and how irresponsible it was of us. I've never felt so much rage. Screw you, Mrs. Weaver. That is an unacceptable response from her. You must really be out of your mind to say something like that. Unacceptable is putting it lightly. You need to plan your days better. Well, excuse me for not planning for an unexpected death of a friend. When I was 13, my friend's little brother died and she had been away from school for like a week, understandably. On her first day back, one of our teachers gave her a lecture about missing school, saying she had to face reality. Time doesn't stop because of death. What the duck? You'd be amazed at how many people think that shit's appropriate. My dad died when I was 12 and my mom's best friend made sure to tell me to get over it while I was crying in my bed the day after he died. My mom died when I was 12 and the girl I thought was my best friend told me to get over it. She'd be so happy if her mom died. That was the end of our friendship. 2 years later she mouthed off to another girl whose mom was dying of cancer and got a chunk of her face ripped off by the girl. So there's that at least. And got a chunk of her face ripped off by the girl. What? Was the other girl like a grizzly bear or something? I'm assuming she had long nails, fake nails. My IT teacher wanted to inspect my work, spreadsheets or a Word document or something. Anyway, she accidentally deleted the file. I was upset and tried to point out she just deleted my work. She started to shout at me, telling me I should have saved frequently. I shouted back, telling her that wasn't the issue. She outright deleted the file. It got pretty heated. My parents were called. We were outright yelling at each other for a good couple of minutes, to the point where we were both in tears. I was about 14 at the time. She should have known better. A few years later my sister had her when she went to that school, and that same teacher berated my sister, calling her names, etc. What a bitch. #X200B, edit. It was a long time ago and I was pretty stressed at the time. I can't remember exactly how, but after several attempts, I wasn't able to restore it. Looking back with what I know now, there are things I could have done to restore it now, even going as far as giving myself admin rights and having a poke around. But I was 14 at the time, being taught IT by a French teacher. How do you accidentally delete a file? How are you the IT teacher and accidentally delete a file? You assume that IT teachers know it. I can tell you for a fact that the school I worked at had business, art and P teachers teaching it. My IT teacher got me banned for hacking the school's website, when all I'd done was alter the code using inspect element and change the website's title to something silly. Yeah, we had a case like that. They assumed because some kid had it on his screen that it was on everything. Jesus Christ, the hecking panic from the head teacher was unreal. I know a chap who once lost it in a lesson and threw a chair at the teacher. Some years, like 15 or so back, and the two are now good friends. Essentially, a discussion had turned into an argument, holding up the rest of the lesson, with the chap basically being awkward and pedantic, not letting it go, getting unduly steamed up himself, and apparently not realizing that everyone was getting pretty tired. The teacher made some snide remark and the chap flipped, threw a chair and walked out. He waited outside though, cooling off, and afterward the teacher went outside as well, said something to the effect of, "I think we both ought to apologize for what just happened," and so they did. And all was well. When I was in 8th grade, my science teacher decided the day before the last test of the year to give us an extra 16 pages of new material to learn by ourselves and appear in the test. Needless to say, everyone lost their shit and started complaining. I wrote her an angry letter. I was later forced either to apologize or they would tell my parents. I apologized because I may have been a little inappropriate, and by the end of the year she was fired after her first year in the school. She also thought it was a good idea to bring her dogs to part of the lessons in the science lab, when there are 2 kids who are allergic to dogs. Well, now I had a teacher that thought latex allergies were fake. One day we did an experiment with balloons and a kid said she was allergic to latex, and the teacher screamed, "No you ain't." Then started rubber her violently with the balloon. She got fired that semester. Charged for reckless endangerment too, I hope. That's not reckless endangerment. That's straight up battery. Intentionally aggravating someone's allergy can get that person killed quite easily. You could make a case for worse charges than battery. Yeah, let the student's mother have at that teacher for 20 minutes and the teacher will beg for a simple assault charge. Parents dedicate a lot of energy to making sure their kid stays alive. It's like the first bullet point in our job description. What to do as a parent Make sure your kid stays alive, make sure you stay alive.